I'm David Funk. I'm the president of EuroLine Windows. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We do describe the work we do as the art and practice of fenestration. And I'm going to take you a little bit into that world as we start, and then we'll get to our component. So this is, we took some internal ribbing for this photograph. The Property Brothers on HGTV, if anyone's familiar with that show. We got a bunch of people in the office thinking we were trying to do our best impersonation of the Property Brothers. So there you go. Okay, so here's where I want to start. This expression, design needs to express hope. This is something that I saw. This is from a Japanese fashion designer, Issey Miyake, who sadly passed away this year. But his expression of design through clothing was all about practicality, about design for living. And when I think about the work that we try and do, all of us, the collective Passive House community, and certainly EuroLine as a manufacturer, we're trying to create things that are practical, that are highly functional, that are going to work and fit the environment that they're intended for. And the origins of this company, EuroLine, go back 28 years. And at that time, it was about bringing tilt and turn windows, which were only produced in Europe, to Canada and manufacturing them here close to the customer. So we could present something, and still today, highly custom, but the world's best technology when it comes to fenestration. And so that is something that we, I think, every day try to focus on, and kind of keeps us kind of moving ahead and advancing. And it's, I think, this expression of hope also speaks to Passive House, and what the Passive House community is trying to do is to look for ways to improve the world we live in, improve the buildings we make through the products that we're trying to insert in them. And so on the next slide, what I want to go into is, I'm cueing Alfred here because he's running the slide. So if I say the next slide, that's why I'm doing that, because he's actually driving the show. So how do I take this now into the beliefs and values of our company? Like, again, we believe there are tremendous problems with respect to climate change in the world. We all could discuss this for quite some time. We, as window makers, as fenestration builders, we can play a role in helping solve some of these issues by creating products that get in the way, that really present barriers, that help hold heat and cool in, or keep the elements out. And so, not to get too philosophical about it, but ultimately, I think we have a tremendous opportunity as window manufacturers to bring, cutting edge leading products to market and to keep improving them. And so it's why we're very excited about Passive House, about the challenges that it presents, because it creates, some pretty difficult things that you have to solve for. There are engineering challenges, there's cost challenges. Making products that are so thermally resistant is quite expensive at times. And so for us, what we need to do is keep figuring out how to solve those problems. And that's kind of like, I guess, in a way, our core, right? Trying to continue to solve for the challenge of making better products that are going to provide more value to the customers we're selling to. And so if I keep going, then there's this quote that I like to talk around a little bit about on the next slide, Alfred. Yeah, this, we are losing so slowly, we still think we're winning. This to me is the customer that we often see that just isn't up for the battle of going all the way to Passive House. It's just going to be too difficult, too expensive. Maybe they don't understand it. However, it's a battle and a discussion that's worth waging, right? And in a way, this problem of, can I create a product that maybe is close to passive, that is very high performing, and ultimately will give improvement or comfort to the homeowner? That's a discussion that's worth having. And as a manufacturer, I think that's kind of part of our role here early in the discussion with customers, is to talk about, how could we get your product to be a little bit more energy efficient? And so as what I'm trying to build here is a story as to why did we decide to push into the casement window and make the casement window close to or approaching passive house level, because that's just not something that most people are thinking about. They're like, well, if I'm going to go to passive, it's tilt and turns, it's European windows. If I'm in the North American window world, then I'm faced with decently performing windows, but passive is just not on the table. Well, we actually think we should push farther, and we should push into that conversation. And that's kind of what we're trying to build to here. So the last thing I want to sort of present before I kind of get to the component, I guess, in a way, on the next slide is this. Well, first, let me just pause. So this is a photograph of a project we did in Nanaimo. So it's on Vancouver Island, the Yagasuki Passive House. We did this project, I think maybe 10 years ago. It's beautiful. I think it's a very cool photograph in a number of ways. It almost looks like a shelter from the outdoors against elements, but you can see how beautiful the background is, how beautiful the environment that it's sitting in is, and really it's attainable, right? You can have products and a home that is going to be super energy efficient. And the environmental impact of buildings is something that we need to address as window manufacturers. It's something that in many large cities, there are studies you can read that will say greater than 50% of the greenhouse emissions actually are imparted just from heating and cooling large buildings, small buildings, all the buildings that make up a city. So for us to try and attack that, it's noble, right? It's something that we should be trying to do. And so as a manufacturer, what exactly can we do about it? Well, number one, we can be educated ourselves. We can make sure we understand all the elements of passive house, and certainly individuals like Alfred on our team that we've sponsored to kind of become passive house consultants. We talk about it internally a fair amount when we're working on projects that are either high performance or passive related. So as a manufacturer, let's be super educated. Number two, let's make sure we have products that fulfill the needs, not just of passive house, but very close. Have products that can be interchangeable and trade up and down. So maybe you don't want to go all the way, but you want some of the benefits of a high performing door or high performing window. We have to make sure we have those products available. And thirdly, we have to sort of open the conversation. So when you come in and you present your design to us, we want to be involved, and we try very hard to be involved in the dialogue of building up what's going to make your project work, and could you stretch it a little bit? What would investing in better performing windows and doors do for your project overall? Talk with you and your energy advisor. So these are things that we do on a regular basis. In fact, our sales folks aren't called salespeople; we call them design consultants. Alfred's job is to work directly with the homeowner, the builder, the energy advisor to come up with the best solution from what we have in our toolkit. Alfred, I mean, this is something you go to market with on a daily basis, right? Like in terms of the way you approach projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every job, regardless of the job type, we're going to have that conversation about how we can maximize efficiency, performance, and cost effectiveness. So we're suggesting changes. We'll often have a set of drawings, the elevations of the house with some design changes to use bigger glass, use different door systems, different configurations. And sometimes the conversation will be whether or not double or triple glazing is really the most cost-effective solutions, depending on what the performance targets are. So yeah, we do that every single day, every single project.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let me get a little bit closer to the component that we want to talk about. So on the next slide, so this picture here, and I'll talk about the quote in a second, but this picture here is it's a quintessential Vancouver project that we would work on. The thing to key in on, the thing when I look at this that I key in on is this is casement windows all day long. And for us, certainly here in this market, more than 50% of what we sell window-wise is a casement window. So although we have, we work on maybe 10, 15 passive house projects a year, that number is growing. In fact, in the last couple of years, the number of projects we're bidding on is going up significantly. But just to think of the scale, there's this huge portion of what we do and what we sell that is not going to be a passive house. However, it is going to need to be, and more high performing. So the casement window is this like, next sort of foray for us, I guess, to try and figure out, well, how can we improve that product? Because it's not going away. We're not convincing someone building this house that they should be using a tilt and turn window. So that creates a bit of an opportunity for us to try and solve for. And, Scott Kennedy at the Passive House conference this year in Victoria, he said this: don't let perfection get in the way of progress. And what I took away, and I think the audience took away from that, was it's not all about getting all the way to a tilt and turn, smaller building footprint passive house for everyone. Sometimes it's about getting very, very close to that, or getting the best performing windows possible into your, in this case, this is about a 4,000 square foot home. But it's still going to benefit if we can have a product in there that's going to be as close to a passive house window as we can get it. So we like that challenge, right? We take on that challenge. And so as a result, on the next slide, we introduce, we call it, we think it's an innovation the world's asking for. It's our ThermoPlus casement window. What we've done is we've taken the sash material and we've changed it. We've gone to our extruder, who in this case is Rayhow, and they make our tilt and turn window, which is a hybrid fiberglass composite product. So it's fiberglass and UPVC blended together. And what that does is it makes the window frame and sash much stronger. And that's been used in the tilt and turn for a number of years. And so when we looked at the casement window, we started talking to them about it. We said, well, why can't we use some of that tech in this window? Could you extrude a portion of it, the whole thing? Well, what we agreed on was the sash, right? That's where the glass sits. That's the operable piece, also sometimes the fixed piece. But ultimately, could we use that material? Now, the challenge was that has to be extruded not in North America, but in Europe. And so casements are only sold in North America and some in parts of Australia, but really it's not a global product. So now you're convincing a large global company to try and make something that's only going to be used in the North American market. Well, frankly, the North American market is still pretty large, and there are a lot of casements to be sold. And so, there was some arm twisting, there was some arm wrestling, but eventually we're able to convince them that there is a market for this. And it's actually quite fantastic, because now what we can do is we can create a window, and Alfred will go into some of the data on it, that performs better than our current casement by a reasonable margin, can get very close to passive, can be included in a passive house project in certain ways. And Alfred can speak to that also. But it also allows us to, at times, create better performance with less glass coating, right? So we can actually take cost out of a casement window for that, on that previous slide, for that Vancouver home that wants to get just a little bit better performance. We can actually do that for slightly less cost, because we're going to take steel out of the window, we're going to make it stiffer, and we're going to take out glass coating. And so to me, I feel like that's a game changer, and why we're pretty excited about it. And I'm going to turn it over to Alfred to start to talk just a little bit about it from his perspective, and then get into some of the tech around it, the test data, and then, hopefully we'll get into some questioning. So Alfred, go ahead.
Thanks, David. So yeah, to reinforce what David is saying there, and a great introduction is, this is what we see every day. Even though we're a performance-focused company, in an ideal world, the initial conversation with the customer coming in would be, passive house questions. Do you have Flixo models for these components? What kind of glass combinations do you have? How does this help my building performance? And happily here in Vancouver, that conversation happens very often. So we're really happy about that. And we do a lot of passive house projects, but we see this need for a higher performing casement to sort of bridge a gap. So when in the real world, that conversation starter may be, how do your screens work? Can you do simulated divided lights in these? What do they look like? Can we put sliders on the sides and back of the house so we can save some money? We don't make sliders, never have and never will make sliders. We do make fantastic screens though. We have great flex screens. They work good. So the reality then in the North American market that we see as the need for a high performance casement to bridge that gap. And this is not a compromise. This is another pathway to take to get to that same performance. Doing some research leading up to this, I was really shocked to see with the billions of dollars that are spent on glass and fenestration in the North American market, such a low percentage of it is even triple glazed, let alone all the way to passive house performance. So this is really our way of contributing to overall better performing buildings that consume less energy, because a lot of the buildings that we are involved in are going to use this window system. So why not make it as efficient as possible? So it's also a good alternative to use in a passive house project. So say you're doing a passive house and you're using all tilt and turn windows, but you have a small confined bathroom space and the configuration of that window doesn't really lend to a tilt and turn window. You can use a high performance casement that opens outwards, and we can provide you with the, excuse me, with the PHPP information for that window. We're going to be able to use this window in multifamily retrofits, and also it'll be super helpful in our renovation market. So we're currently doing a large retrofit project in Guelph, Ontario, which is a perfect example of how this window will come into play to make that building more efficient and buildings like it. So this section drawing here shows how this window goes together, and we can talk a little bit about the technical aspects of it. So this gray portion that you see here is that fiberglass composite reinforcement. So in the previous window, there was a steel element right there. Now the fiberglass allows us to use less steel, and it still has the same properties, so same strength and rigidity as a window with steel in it, without that thermal bridge caused by the steel. Now, please disregard the spacer bar. This is just an image that we grabbed. We would never use a metallic spacer bar. We use Quonix spacer bar. So just like that fiberglass composite element, that's another element that we're using in our passive house windows. So the same technology that we use in a passive house tilt and turn window is carried over into this casement. So things that are proven that work, that we know work and have worked for years for us, are going to work well in the casement. We use the same foam inserts as we use in our passive house window, and they're inserted here and here. So in this part of the frame, there will still be steel because we need steel for this frame to work properly, to be rigid and strong. But we've added foam and silicone and a backer rod at that location to eliminate as much as possible the thermal bridging through the frame there. Of course, we have multiple IGU combinations, the same, again, technology that we use in our passive house windows. So the IGU can be put together in such a way that we have the U value targets you want, the solar heat gain coefficients, et cetera. So again, this is all a tested and proven system that we've used in our tilt and turns for years. And this is a crossover into that. So that's a bit of the why, but a more important why. And as we promised, we're going to get geeky. So this is something that we have here in BC. It's called the STEP code. Now, as we mentioned, we are a performance-focused company. So I wanted to call this slide the 5 steps ahead slide, because in 2017, when the STEP code was introduced, EuroLine Windows already was 5 steps ahead. We were the first Canadian manufacturer of a tilt and turn passive house window that was already in projects in 2017 and being used and being put to good use. So our casement window at that time was also capable of STEP code 3. So what do? We're in a great position. Do we stand back and wait 17 years for everyone to catch up? Of course not. So at the beginning of this STEP code conversation, and if you don't have one where you live, encourage we encourage you to get one. They're great. So BC is not the only place that have this. Other provinces in Canada and other regions in Canada have it as well. So it's an addition to our building code, and it is based 100% just on the performance of the building. So in 2017, this was basic building code. So a window, will just speak just about windows as far as performance values go. A window then need to meet a 1.8 U value. And in this conversation today, I'm just going to be using psi values, so the metric numbers, which you can do the division of 5.678 to get to IP numbers. So when this was first introduced in 2017, I was attending town hall meetings in municipalities outside of the city of Vancouver, for example. And the conversation was about, how does this affect me? How much is this going to cost? What do I have to do? Can I just put more insulation in the building? Attending Passive House Canada's events and seeing the level of knowledge in the room, doing the Icebox Challenge back in 2017 with Sean St. Amour, really seeing where this was all going. It was quick. We were quick to see that a cursory knowledge of passive house and building technology was just not going to be enough. We needed a better understanding of it, and we needed to know how what we do contributes and improves these buildings. Because windows are one of the top 5 elements in a passive house or in any high performance building. So in 2022, as this improves, you can see this note here, incentives. So we are in 2022, and in Vancouver, we're at step code 4. So step code 4, the city of Vancouver introduced in their bylaws on their website something called the 3 paths to compliance. So there's 3 ways that you can go about achieving these energy goals: the prescriptive path, the performance path, and fortunately for us, passive house. So that's one of the 3 ways you can do it here in Vancouver. And the city of Vancouver has actually made the commitment to all of their buildings, whether it's new construction or anything they do to refit a building they already own, to be built to the passive house standard. And they're doing that already. They're completed projects. So we're very proud of that. So the prescriptive path basically is a spec of all your products. So right down to the appliances. So your windows, the insulation type, your wall assembly, everything is spec'd. And if you show that all and include that into your plans, you can go ahead and build your building, and it will perform according to those specifications. The performance model is really where this window fits in, and where our tilt and turn windows are often used as well. So a performance model is sort of a mini simplified PHPP. So you hire an energy advisor, and your goal is the TEDI and the MEUI. So it's all performance based, but you have the options to pick and choose how are you going to achieve those performance goals. Obviously, a window is a more cost-effective way to get a higher performing building envelope than over-insulating. We know that over-insulating plateaus. If your window isn't performing, you can insulate up to R1 million, and the plateau, the overall effective value of that wall is not going to change. Now, while we're talking about these pathways, just as a quick sidebar, and I would love some feedback in the chat here. If I do 2 side-by-side buildings, say we have a developer who has a double lot in Vancouver, just quickly here, and he decides he's going to build one for himself and a mirror image building for his friend, the college professor next door. The college professor wants a passive house, and the developer doesn't want to go all in. So he's going to do a step 5 house. So we're going to supply windows for both those projects with exactly the same window spec. But the PHPP house, the windows will be, in my opinion, calculated properly. So they will do the frame to glass ratio, and they'll do a center of glass calculation by the CEN European model. Whereas the house next door, that's step 5, with the identical windows, will use the NFRC numbers. So they will all get a sticker on them that say they all perform to the exact same performance level based on a tested size, which is really not quite correct. And so I'd love to hear other people's feedback. We thought we were going to get a nice, concise answer on this at the Passive House Canada conference in May. We didn't get a full answer. So if anybody has faced the same sort of thing and has some input, I'd love to hear about it. So the bottom line is that not everyone's going to build a passive house, but we can still build a no compromise, low energy consuming building that's future proof. So we really feel that this casement window is a great addition to our passive house family. So how does this window work? Let's look at some numbers here. So we have improved thermal performance without the requirement of steel. As mentioned, we have foam in the sash. We have sizes that can go up to 30% larger without requiring steel. Now, this is a conversation that is really project specific. So we have, some square footage sizes there in this slide and some heights by widths. But that's really a conversation you need to have with us about how you can attain the best configurations to use this window the most effectively. So once we get over a certain size, we are going to put steel back in it, because we don't want this window to lack performance, to go out of shape, for example, to be completely frank. So it may need steel on it if it's really tall. We've got some test units on the roof of the building right now to see how they're going to perform over time in, exposed to the weather. But we can do some really large sizes with this without adding steel, but it is always going to be part of the conversation. So there's still welded corners. We still can foil this any color. We can do custom shapes. And another addition to this window that's going to really be a big game changer is we've added a corner drive to the multi-point locking. So if I just use this double casement, for example, right here in the middle, if you see my cursor, so our casement windows always had multiple point locking all the way up the sash, all the way up from top to bottom of the sash. And there are also locking points here at the back on the hinge side. Now what we're going to do is add a corner drive up here, because in passive house, although air leakage is not a spec for having a passive house certified window, for example, we know that air leakage is key to performance all the way to passive house performance. But in a low energy building, we need really good blower door test numbers. So we're going to have a corner drive, which is really going to suck in the top of those casement sashes. And I'll just go back to the previous slide, or sorry, this slide. We also have 3 gaskets on this window, which are key. So there's a gasket there, there, and there. So in combination with the corner drive and the 3 gaskets, we have really good air leakage, exfiltration, and infiltration numbers. The window is a PG50, so it's a commercial capable window. We can do multifamily projects with this window. We see these design pressure numbers are phenomenal. Now, David mentioned briefly that air leakage, that a lot of windows that were going to be in these projects, like that example project we showed you, a lot of them are going to be fixed sash windows. So even if you have a window like this one, more than likely this will be fixed sash, operable sash. And then in the same room, or if it's a triple window like this, three parts of it will be fixed and 1 part, or you can understand where I'm going with that. So those numbers are, a fixed sash window is 0.028. So that's almost identical to the air leakage numbers of our passive house window. Mm-hmm. So we are already getting blower door test scores in the 0.8s to 0.7s on a typical casement job, where not the same amount of detail has been put into the envelope as it would be in a passive house. So we feel confident that we can get to passive house numbers in blower door tests with this window. Mm-hmm. No problem. Another contributing factor, of course, is we would have our door systems in these jobs. So our doors are, our 4700 series swing doors are our passive house doors. They don't leak. They don't leak air at all. So our lift and slide doors, even our folding door, are getting really good blower door test scores. So those things in combination are going to get to that performance number you need for a high performance building with a casement window. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, but very importantly, is this number right here. So a U value. So we talked about getting close to passive house numbers. This is getting very, very close to passive house numbers. So this is a number for PHI US, absolutely right there. So 0.85, again, talking about case specific. So if we're using a window that's within those size parameters that we are just using foam only in the sash, then you are easily going to be able to get to 0.85 with your choice of combination of triple glazing. So you can use the different types of low-E coatings that we have and achieve different solar heat gains. but that 0.8 and 5 number is definitely achievable. Now, for larger sizes, we are going to be at 0.9 if we have to put steel back in it, 0.90, but that is an achievable number for this window all the time. Now, if you want to ask me anything offline about this, some more technical details, feel free to reach out. All of my contact info is down here, and I'd be happy to help and add anything in the chat, and we'll talk about it later. So continuing with geekdom, here's our Flexo model. So we talk about incremental changes, and I know that everyone in this audience is familiar with the PHPP and the window section of the PHPP and how small incremental decimals make either great changes or detrimental changes to the overall project. So see here, our UF value is 1.11, and that's what allows us to get to that. That's what allows us to get to that 0.85 UW number. So there are a couple of things to talk about here. So this is the location of the foam that we were mentioning. The red line is the fiberglass composite portion of the window, and the foam in the steel. So this is U-channel here is steel again, but there's foam in it, and then there will be silicone around that, and which is difficult to show in a Flexo model, but in actual manufacturing that will be there. There's also a backer rod right there at the IGU. And surprisingly enough, small things like that take decimals off of this number. And playing around with the location of the foam, we found that, you know, some of these chambers being filled with foam is effective. Some of them being left without foam is actually more effective. So this is the ultimate combination by modeling this several times. And this is how this window is going to go together. And compared to the old casement number was 1.24, 1.25, I believe, with steel here and steel here, which may not seem like a lot, but it is a lot. So in step code world where we live, that's 2 steps. So this allows us to use this window in combination with a better glass package. So their better glass package basically has a bigger effect because the frame is functioning much better. Another factor, getting back to ratios, is this is a very narrow frame width. So a casement window is only 85 millimeters wide, whereas the tilt and turn window is 111 millimeters wide. So you're in a smaller sized window, you're getting more of a center of glass number on a window as a true value of that window performance. So like I said, I'm happy to provide this model. We're working on other models for other Flexo models for different components of these windows, like the mullion connections between 2 windows and how that affects the performance, so that you could use that, like I say, if you choose to use some casements in a passive house window package. So you had all tilt and turns, but you want to use a few casements because they make more sense in certain locations. We can give you this information that you can input into your PHPP so that your model still works. Lastly, for me, this is a project we talked about just before the summer break. This is something that's really close to our hearts. This is a recent passive house project. It's called Tomo House here in Vancouver. And it's underway still, and it really speaks to what we're all about. It really speaks to our approach and our willingness to learn and adapt. So this is a co-housing community. So the passive house lifestyle embraced fully. They have even a shared electric car, shared electric bikes plugged in, and a community garden, community space. These people are not real estate speculators. These people are really going all in, and they have the holistic approach. And speaking to what David introduced us with, and this is really our philosophy. We really like to be involved in projects like this. We know that during this project there were challenges that we had to face. We had to speak with their passive house consultants, speak with the builder, the contractor, and overcome some challenges, because we had not every window is going to be the exact model window that we see in our passive house certification. So it's not just going to be a simple one panel tilt and turn window. There's going to be connections. There's OITC glass, which affects how the window performs because there's a laminate layer in there. So all of those things were met and faced in the real world, and we gave them a window package that performs to the true life numbers of what they're after. So our goal with all of our projects is to be a helpful partner. We know we have the tools to do that, and we have a product that can do it. And so our goal is to achieve a high performance building, but our goal is also to be helpful, to be a partner, as I said. So we're all encouraged to contribute to the problems that we're facing in the environment, for example, as individuals. What can we do? Our choice of what we drive or what we eat even. How can we contribute as individuals? So how can we contribute as an individual company? So we can't solve our problems. Very smart guy said, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So we always need to continue educating ourselves, innovating, and even changing if we have to. And I think that this casement window is a really good example of that, our willingness to do that, and it shows where we are and where we're going. So hand it back to Davyd.
Yeah, let's look at, I just wanted to wrap up with, I guess, a reintroduction for people that may not be familiar with our product array. The 4700 is our tilt and turn window. Internally, that's our nomenclature for it. We make the tilt and turn window out of it, fixed window for fixed windows. We also make at the very bottom in-swing and out-swing doors out of the same profile, tilt and glide door. So that's a bulletproof product. It's the ThermoPlus product, which is it's Rough Pro, but it's a fiberglass composite. The 1800 is the casement we're talking about. Used to be just UPVC, but now we're introducing a fiberglass composite sash and all the benefits we just talked about. The door systems, lift and slide, smart slide, multi-slide, those are a product that we work with Aluplast out of Germany on, and it adopted those approximately 2 years ago now. Lift and slide is fantastic. Smart slide is a full multi-locking point compression sash. It gets fabulous performance. And then the multi-slide is just for that 2/3 opening that some people really want to have, right? I want to have 3 panels and I want them all to stack. And so that can really work quite well in some circumstances. And then the other product that I just want to mention last year is the folding door. It's a bifold. A company called Cortizo out of Spain, and we've been producing that product and distributing it here for many, many years. Really successful product. So this is our product array. As you heard from Alfred, we don't have a sliding window. We don't make those windows. We don't believe they fit. So we work with this array of products. We know them well. We're constantly tweaking them, finding ways to customize them, which is, I think, the point of our discussion with everyone today is how do we take something that's already good and make it just a little bit better? And that there will be massive benefits from doing that. We also, something that's very important to us is we maintain what I would consider best in industry lead times. We manufacture in BC. Everything is manufactured in BC, and we distribute directly to consumer from BC. And our lead time right now is between 6 and 8 weeks for anything you could order. And it's been that way for years. We don't intend to change that if it's within our control. We source our glass locally. I saw something come up in the chat, and we can devolve into that if someone wants to, but we source it locally here out of BC. I guess the last thing I would say is, while we take it seriously, we do have a lot of fun. We do like what we do. This is a pretty cool industry to be involved in. I feel very blessed to have the team around me and us that we do. We'll do somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600 projects this year, and our business is growing. We're expanding outside of BC into Ontario. We've established a showroom in Toronto, and we do a fair bit of work into the US. We have some fantastic agents down there that are now representing our product and selling it into some pretty fabulous residential and commercial projects. So that's EuroLine windows and our new ThermoPlus casement. And Zach, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, fantastic, David and Alfred. That was really awesome. I'd just like, if everybody could just unmute yourself and give them a round of applause. I think that is called for at this point. Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic. So now please mute yourself. So we're going to go into questions and answers, and we've got some good questions lined up here. Dale, you are first. Looks like you're there, Dale. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I've only done this for 2 years now, at least. You had your own installers install the windows in Rainbow when Rod had your windows there when I was there. Do you still have your own installers? And what is the warranty for your products?
Yes, we do. In the Lower Mainland, like in BC, we do all of our own installations. Outside, we would say we take on the role of advisors to try and get whatever install crew you used, or if we suggested a third party, we try and work with them directly. Warranty is 25 years on the IGU, the sealed unit, and 20 years on the rest of the product, 10 years on the hardware.
Yeah, the hardware was what wore out, but I look at it as an advantage to have your own installers, because frankly, I find after having mine installed in Whistler that if you don't have it installed properly, you might as well put it out in the street.
Couldn't agree more. Yep.
Okay, I'll let everybody else go now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Dale. All right. Next up is Tom Isley.
Hi, David. Thank you, Alfred. This is fantastic. So I'm in New York and just was wondering who to go to. I've got a couple of projects that I'm on the verge of needing window and door quotes.
Yep.
Who are your reps? Who to go to for New York State projects?
Yep, we can. Alona can send Corey's information in the chat directly, and we have someone in house that works with all of our U.S. distribution. Corey, Corey Kemp. I think he's on the call, but he'll be the person you'd reach out to. Yep, sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's good stuff. Next up is Don Van Vliet.
Hello. My question is about the casement windows and to what level they meet the Passive House standard.
Yeah. Alfred, do you want to jump in on this one maybe specifically, and then we can round it out where we're at with it?
Yeah, for sure. Where's your project on? Is it in Canada or in the US?
It's in Vancouver.
Vancouver.
We've actually requested quotes from you.
Okay, fine. Perfect. Hopefully that's being followed up on.
Yeah, it was just a couple of days ago, actually. So.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure that we crack the whip and you get that quote. So to answer your question, so this, I mean, that 0.85 number is a little higher than you'd want it to be for the Passive House. Our tilt and turn window is 0.78. So the other thing is that this isn't a certified component. It's not certified at this point. PHI US, it is certified, but as far as the PHI, we don't know if we're going to pursue that. So for now, this would be, like I said, an added component. You could use some of these, and we can provide the PHPP information to your consultant so that he could use these sporadically throughout the project in specific locations. But this wouldn't be a full package Passive House window in Vancouver. I would say no.
In that house, you have shown in that 1800 that photograph that Cornerstone did. Is that all casement windows?
Yes.
And it met Passive House?
That's not a Passive House. So a Passive House, all of our Passive House projects, full Passive House projects, are with the tilt and turn system. Right. This very easily could get to the Passive House certification as a low energy building.
Right.
Right.
But the passive house consultant would, at this point, if they're buying this product, would have to model it based on it not being a certified component, but you can still use it. Absolutely, you could still use it. My first thought about it was that it could be used in certain locations, and the majority of the job would be tilt and turns. But I mean, I can provide your passive house consultant with enough information that he can extrapolate with and put it into his model, and probably could use it.
Okay. Yeah, we're using Cornerstone as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
So great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ton. Okay, next up is Trevor Harris.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Thank you, Zach, too. Also, I've been seeing a few of these window pieces, and it's become kind of clear that there is a real difference between North American and European glass, low iron and that sort of thing. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the glass you're using.
Yeah, I mean, we source glass here. It's a Cardinal float glass that ends up being coated and then remanufactured into IGUs by PFG for us in Langley. I don't know, Alfred, did you want to add anything onto that in terms of content?
I mean, there is a difference in the composition of the glass just based on location in Europe. I mean, there's different minerals in the soil. So yes, it is a different composition of glass. We have had great success with the glass that we get through PFG, and they're a great partner to us because we have a lot of opportunity with them to customize our IGUs. So that to us is the most important for performance, is the ability to customize IGUs and to hit targets. And as far as glass clarity goes, right, we have great clear glass.
Great. Looks like Trevor's happy. All right, awesome. Okay, so next up is John Snell. And then if you have any other, I just want to let the audience know that if you have questions, please put them into the chat now. Right now, John's is the last question in the queue. But if there are others, please fire them away. So John, it's all yours.
Hi, a wonderful presentation and great windows. I have a client who wants French doors. I know they're not passive house, typically standard doors, and it's challenging to make them perform well. I'm wondering if you guys make they want 3/4 glass on the French doors, double doors. Do you guys make any kind of a French door?
Yes, we do.
Go for it, man.
This on this slide here, that 4700 series, that's a French door we're showing in that image right there. So that's a French door with 2 side lights. That's a super high performing outswing or inswing hinge door. We can triple glaze that. Again, lots of glass combinations. It's got multi-point locking, triple gaskets all the way around. So the one lever activates all of the locking points. It's a super functional door. 3 different sill options, sorry. And we have everything we do has 100 colors, and you can put simulated divided lights into that door to make it look like, your more typical French door system.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Well, it looks like we made it through the questions. Walter, would you like to ask the question that you just sent me? I just got one.
Sure. I just noticed that the main component of your construction is polyvinyl chloride or PVC. Do you have alternate materials for? Just because there's been some studies that show that PVC off gases and it's bad for the interior environment. Are there other materials that you could use that would be the same quality, the same durability, and so on, and that wouldn't necessarily be harmful for human health?
Open to listen. I don't know about any commercially viable or manufactured products right now that are available. I hear you on that. Most of the products that we make, most of the jobs we do are foiled. And so we are putting a cover over the PVC. But yeah, I don't really have any insight into what we would do differently there. Yeah.
Oh, good. I didn't notice the foil covering. That's super important.
Yeah, mostly like 85% of the jobs we sell have foil on at least one side, 60% on both. And that's an aesthetic, you know, what the market's looking for, right? What they're sort of asking for. So yeah, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Yeah.
The product we use though is regulated. I mean, we use a compound that's for North America, that's specific to North America, because those VOCs are a consideration. So there are no compounds in our extrusions that would lead to those kinds of situations, as opposed to some other countries that manufacture them and ship them to North America. That it is regulated. Of course, it is a PVC product, of course, but it is a high quality PVC, and it's UPVC.
Yeah.
So the U is important in the UPVC.
Right. I think there's a manufacturer here in Maryland that uses vinyl, but I don't know the difference as far as durability is concerned.
Yeah, vinyl is a different compound.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Walter. Appreciate it. All right, so Sandra, you're up next.
All right. Awesome presentation. Question is on hardware. I might have missed that. I know you talked about airtightness of your windows. Can you just talk a bit about the hardware you're using on those casement windows?
Yeah, sure. Alfred, you want to hit that one, or?
Yeah, sure. So the hardware we use is from Roto. So there is a multi-point component to it all the way up. I'll just go back to that slide that just shows the images of the casement. So there's a multi-point lock. So it's activated by one lever on the sash, but it locks all the way up depending on the height of the sash in multiple points, about 20 centimeters apart. And then at the hinge side, there are, and it's like an overlap locking point. So there's a component on the sash and then a component on the frame that interlock with each other. Mm. And what we've done with the new window is we've added so where that multi-point locking goes up the side of the sash, it's going to turn the corner and go over the top. So it goes about 20 centimeters in, and there's an added locking point right there at the top of the sash. Mm-hmm. That's really going to lock it into place. It's going to hold it in with rigidity, and that's going to definitely push it in against those triple gaskets much tighter. And it's going to be bomb-proof.
That sounds good. And so the handle is the typical casement handle. Is it what I need to imagine? This thing you turn, do you kind of turn at the bottom?
That's right.
It's still there. So we have a rotary handle at the bottom,
and
there's a lever on the sash that locks it into place once it's closed. So that activates the lever on the sash, activates the multi-point locking.
Okay, great. Thanks. I have one last question. 84 inches in height. How high can you go if you add steel reinforcement for those doors?
Switching to 4700 talk now. Alfred, what would you say?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we know that kind of.
The casement, right? So then we do either an in-swing or an out-swing with 4700.
So the maximum height we'd go with either the tilt and turn or the casement really is 83.25.
Yeah.
So the actual, so it would be an 84-inch RO.
Yeah.
So an operable sash and tilt and turn is 83.25, because that's the maximum we can go with the hardware. It's really the hardware that's limiting it at that point. Otherwise, you go to door sash if you're going.
Otherwise, you go to doors. Yeah. And then maximum height for doors, Alfred, 4700.
107.
Yeah.
9 feet tall. At 9 feet tall, we put steel back in it though.
Yeah.
For a door.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank
you. Okay, so next up we have Natalia.
Hi. Just a question about, do you have Revit families available for your products for project documentation? Or is just CAD blocks for now? Or
yeah, I missed the first part. Sorry.
Do you have Revit families, for use in BIM project documentation?
No, we don't have Revit models right now. We have CAD drawings and Flexo modeling.
CAD and Flexo. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And just one more. Do you work much in Alberta? Any plans to having a Calgary showroom? That would be awesome.
you put that in the chat. Yeah, we do some work in Alberta. Mainly it's just shipping direct and working with customers directly there. We don't have any sales reps right now in Alberta, but open-minded. I mean, we'd love to do more projects in Alberta. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Natalia. Next is Scott Palmer. I'm not exactly sure the details of the question about accessibility, but maybe would you mind, David and Alfred, sharing information about accessibility features of your windows and doors?
Yeah, Alfred, do you want to just talk about the low sill?
Yeah, so if we're talking about doors, that is a constant challenge, actually, because the nature of the sash actually closes up against our sill, up against the side, because it's a high performance door sash and frame system with continuous gaskets all the way around. We do have a barrier free sill. So depending on your local building code, we can drop that barrier free sill to give you 3/8 of an inch, or about 12 millimeters of clearance off of finished floor to top of sill height. So there still has to be a bump up because our door sash needs room to operate. Accessibility otherwise, if you're referring to automatic openers and panic hardware, those are things that are in the works, and they've been in the works for a while because they're difficult. They are a bit difficult to find solutions for. We have some good options right now for openers, which we're close to being able to implement. But the sill height, if you're referring to that, we can do a door wide enough for clear width opening, and we can provide a sill that by our local building code will be compliant as accessible, not ADA.
Oh, this is Scott. I had trouble finding my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, the other question was on the windows, kind of the operator location vertically and the locking of the window all within reach range and the force to open and close the window.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the operator, the crank that opens the window is right at the bottom of the window, and it's mounted on the face of the frame. So just have to reference screens here because the screens go in above that the handle that opens the window. It's a Roto X Roto handle, and then about 1/3 of the way up the sash height is the lever that activates the multi-point hardware. The bigger the window, the more difficult that lever will get to operate in real terms. A small typical size window, that lever is very, very simple to move up and down. If you did go to a 77-inch or 6'6" or up to a 7-foot tall window, there are more locking points, so you've got more moving parts. So I would still say that it's very easy for the average person, but a very young child or an elderly person may have difficulty with that.
Well, thank you.
Yep. But not the typical sizes, though. Typical size is very easy to operate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, right now we have one question left. So if just everyone, this is almost last call here. If you have other questions, please type them in chat. So up next is Nitin.
Hi, it may be little loud here because duct cleaning is going on. Sorry for that. My question is, compared to European windows, where are we at the cost point? I'm talking about tint and turn, white on white.
So if you're saying what would the casement window be like compared to the tilt and turn? It's comparable. It's a little bit, there's a little bit less material in a casement window overall. As Alfred mentioned, there's less frame material. You end up with a little bit larger amount of glass. Those two things kind of offset, but there's a slight difference. I would say casements are a little bit less, maybe in the order of magnitude 5-10% than a tilt and turn window.
No, my question was compared to European windows, where are we at the price level?
Yeah, so you want to talk about a landed window, right? So getting a window of comparable performance from Europe, made in Europe, shipped to you.
Yeah.
If I were to use BC or have it made here locally, yeah, we're going to compete head to head, no problem. In fact, we should be able to, certainly if we're not right there on price, you're never going to get that window in 6 to 8 weeks.
Should we not be economical compared to shipping from Europe and coming here? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to depend on the product, right? So it's really hard. It's really hard to compare. I know. I mean, Alfred, you've gone up against some European companies. What would you say?
I'd say it really is more about comparable. If it's really the same quality of product, if it's so if it's coming from Europe and it's built properly and it's going to perform like our windows, it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be the carrying costs on your project to wait several months for it to come in. So that's actually a big consideration. There are companies from Europe that have budget options, but they are just that. They're budget options, and they are less expensive for a reason. And then there's the X factor, is shipping. So if even if it does lead up to its lead time, what if there's a problem with the product when it arrives? Those things all really add to cost really quickly. So I would say that if you're doing a real true apples to apples comparison with a quality window from Europe, we will be less expensive and will be quicker.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'd add is often European products aren't made with a North American formulation, right? So to the question earlier on UPVC, the standards of what's available and what's allowable to be sold in Europe are different than what's available and what's allowable to be sold in North America. And as a consumer, you're going to need to really look into that yourself. However, as a Canadian manufacturer, we have to sell product that is approved for this market. So there are differences there also.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Awesome. I think that we've made it through all of the questions. So this has really been a fantastic session. Alfred and David, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here as the audience and with all of your great questions. I also want to give a special shout out to Alana Gordiva of EuroLine Windows, who's been doing a bunch of behind the scenes work to make this happen, and as well as Kim Davis at House Accelerator. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday and be well. We'll have a recording of this published on our YouTube page as well as on the videos page of our website by next week, so you can refer to it and share it with your colleagues and refer back to it. So, Alfred and David, do you have any final parting words that you'd like to share before we close up?
I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Alfred. But go ahead.
Just thanks for having us. This was great. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the group, and you guys have a great day too.
Yeah, echo the same. Yep, nothing to add. Thanks, Zach.
Okay, fantastic. Be well, everyone. See ya.